All right, what's up, family? Welcome back to Brian's World for our final episode of the Madden 25 preseason series. As we get ready for the release of Madden's next title, we've been testing the game and letting you know what we think. And today's episode is going to be heavy. It's a lot packed into it because it's all about franchise, and of course, that's what we're all about as well. So we'll dive in, and you can decide what to do when Madden 25 releases in a little over a month. But first, if you're new here, go ahead and get subscribed to the channel. We offer in-depth sports gaming simulation analysis, and we're always looking to grow our family. A thumbs up helps us out a lot too. We're trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. We appreciate your support. Everything about how we here inside of Brian's World enjoy and play sports games, everything is all about the franchise experience, whether it's Madden, whether it's the upcoming college football game or NBA, even MLB, whatever we do, it's all about realism, simulation, experiences. And so this franchise mode breakdown episode may be a lot to unpack, but we'll do it together and it's all good. Because I want you to know what to expect when you unbox your game next month. Now, as I mentioned a little bit in the prior video, how I've been testing the Madden pre-releases when it comes to the franchise is I will start a franchise as if we are really playing our online seasons. I try to do everything roster-wise, league interest-wise, as close to what we would do in an actual competitive season as possible. The only thing that I wait to touch are the sliders and league settings. The reason why I wait to do that is because tinkering with the sliders and the league settings, a lot of times tinkering the right amount actually fixes the game and gets a lot of the bugs and the glitches out of it. Now, the reason I leave that off during testing is because that's not how it should be. As gamers, when you spend $70, $60, in some cases, depending on the type of sports experience you're looking for, you may spend well over $100. You kind of expect to be able to enjoy yourself and have something that simulates realistic sports experiences without having to do much tinkering. As my brother always says, we don't get paid to fix the game. We buy the game. And unfortunately, it hasn't been like that with Madden in recent years. We've spent a fair amount of time fixing the game. And with the recent titles, you may end up fixing the game all the way up until the release of the next one. Like we just had to do another slider set for Madden 24. It's crazy. But that's how I break down the testing with these games. In the last phase of it is I will spend a few days jumping back and forth between the previous title and the upcoming title, just to really highlight the differences if there are any. So that's the methodology. And as I mentioned on the last episode, I did a Commanders rebuild for the testing. And there really ain't no science behind that. I'm just a Commanders fan. It is what it is. So that's where we are. Let's dive in. My opening statement for this finale is that I do believe that you will spend a fair amount of time with Madden 25's franchise mode. I think that you will have some enjoyable moments, but overall, it will be more frustrating than anything else because you can't stop thinking about the potential. You can't stop thinking about how much of an NFL fan you truly are and the different aspects of the NFL that you wish were prevalent and present in Madden 25's franchise mode. I had fun with it. I had a few moments where I got lost in roster management, but I didn't really get lost in anything else. There were a couple of new bells and whistles that I did appreciate, but as I opened with, you just want more. And unfortunately, that's been a refrain that we've heard quite often in recent years when it comes to this title. Now, the overwhelming, most improved part of the franchise mode is, like I mentioned last week, the draft and scouting system. If you're someone like me, I love the fantasy side of what each prospect can be. I love scouting. I love the storylines that, well, in our case, we create ourselves. But even some of the storylines that come with the game, that's my favorite part of sports gaming. And honestly, that's my favorite part of sports in general. Remembering when Patrick Mahomes got passed up by a few teams and seeing where he is now, that's my favorite part of sports. So to see this improvement with the draft and scouting system, which I won't go all the way into detail with because we did a whole video on it last week, but to see those improvements, it was refreshing. thing. You'll love it. You'll enjoy it. It was a bit clunky and a bit glitchy, but I think a lot of that stuff was just because it was the testing phase. In theory, it's going to be fun. The unfortunate thing is that that's the most enjoyable improvement in the franchise mode by miles. And the reason why that's unfortunate is because there's so many other details to the NFL day-to-day lifestyle that we were hoping that Madden would tap into in Madden 25 that they just didn't get to. I'll say the next best improvement is the overall UI. And the reason why that's a bit of a letdown, while I didn't have any issues with loading screens, I thought the screens were cool. It was less complicated. It was a lot easier to navigate, and there was a lot of information that you were presented with on the overall screen, and it was laid out better. It flows a lot better. You'll enjoy it. But it took me maybe 2 days to realize that it's not really anything new. It's just arranged in a different way. When I realized that, the new UI was a little bit deflating just because it's not really anything new in particular. But I do appreciate the reorganization, and you're going to love it when it comes to building your team, because whether you need to look for something in the upcoming draft class or if you need to jump to your roster really quickly, there are all new ways to sort players, and whatever you're looking for, I guarantee you'll be able to find it a lot quicker in Madden 25 than you have in previous titles. If you were somebody like us, we had a lot of bugs and glitches when it came to our news feed. It was weird because it kind of only started after we got through the first 2 seasons of our online franchise, but nonetheless, it was an issue. And it appears like that issue has been rectified. The news feed seemed to work all the way through the preseason and well into the season as well, where in Madden 24, our news stories weren't refreshing until like week 10. Then it spent the rest of the season trying to get caught up on what it missed. It was really weird. Definitely took away from the experience, but everything seems to be working fine in 25. It's pretty cool. And the new UI has the news situated in a much more realistic experience to where it really does feel like you're scrolling social media. I can imagine that around October-ish, when we get into the nitty-gritty of our franchise, it will be fun to actually scroll through and kind of see what's going on in an actual competitive league. That was awesome. Another new thing about the new UI is these messages that you'll get from different people on your staff, whether it's an assistant coach, someone from your medical staff, someone from your scouting team. You'll be getting a lot of messages. Like before I came to the studio to record this, I feel like I got like maybe 5 or 6 messages in 1 week. Just messages saying, such and such is healing fine. They're on track to be back, or this person has healed up. You can now use them in your depth chart. Or there was a message saying that there was a particular player, I can't remember exactly who it was, but that there was a particular player on the trading block that, maybe we should look at. It would be an upgrade. It was a guard. It would be an upgrade at the guard position. And I did think that was cool. Was it as immersive as it could be? No, but it is a start to something that could be good in the future. So I got the question on Twitter at BeamMeUpBrian asking what my top 2 things were that I enjoyed from the franchise mode, and that's it. Everything else is a little bit all over the place, and the best way to approach this is for us to actually go through this Commanders rebuild together. Here's what happened when I was rebuilding the Commanders in Madden 25. We were inserted into the preseason and training camp, and that's where I noticed some more new things when it came to the training camp. Something that you may have noticed in the Madden 25 reveal, there were some new mini games in the training camp, but for whatever reason in the reveal, it looked like it was so many more. I counted only 2. Like only 2 new mini games. Were they awesome? Yeah, they were really dope because I've always wanted to work with offensive linemen and train with offensive linemen. You can do that. There's a mini game for that now. And then there's another one that just kind of helps with your pocket presence. These were games that actually helped me as a user get used to the Madden 25 gameplay mechanics because there are stark differences in that department from Madden 24 and previous titles. Even some of the other mini games, they helped me as a user, and I thought that was really dope. That was an interesting merge between reality and virtual reality, if you will. But I just don't want you to expect a long list of new mini games. There aren't. At least there wasn't on my copy. Now, there weren't any fireworks with any part of the franchise at this stage. There really wasn't anything. It was the same as Madden 24, where you do your training camp, and then they give you 3 more more chances to kind of work with 3 more players during your weekly strategy setup, and then you head out to your preseason game, and that's that. And while I won't get into ideas of how Madden can improve this part, because it's not what this video is about, I will say that it is really underwhelming with how much they leave on the table when it comes to the preseason experience in training camp and the summer in general. There is so much that Madden can add to this experience that can make it enjoyable and make it matter. The way it's offered now, it's kind of more tempting to just skip in general. But nonetheless, we arrived for our first preseason game, and the AI and mechanics are still the same. Exact same preseason mechanics where you will see the starters swap out at the end of the first quarter of your first preseason game, and then it'll be that exact same depth chart for the rest of the game, which means in some cases, maybe the computer's starting cornerback is also the third safety on the depth chart. Once they make that switch, that starting cornerback will stay on the field as the safety for the rest of the game. There is no AI to correct that. And you can imagine what that does to other places on the depth chart. And it's something that you've probably experienced before, because that's been an issue with Madden's preseason for a few years now. And if you can't tell, it happened again in my first preseason game. Now, it's hard to judge the broadcast and presentation portion of this, because in these testing phases, at least for the last few years that I've done this, there's a lot missing from the presentation aspect. I mean, there's barely any audio in these testing phases, period. But I will say that it was really annoying to hear the same preseason commentary that we've been hearing for a few years now. And I think that it's going to be really refreshing to hear the newer voices, whether it's Olsen, Tarico, whoever. It's going to be cool to hear them on there. And I wonder what that'll do for the overall experience. But even the actual voiceover guy was kind of just annoying me, because he's still referring to the preseason only having 3 games as it's this big news story. But in actuality, the NFL made this change a few years ago. That's kind of old news to us now. Anyways, went through the entire game. It wasn't eventful at all. You'll see new stat lines maybe once or twice. But actually, they're not new stat lines. It's just that the graphics are new to kind of match the new scoreboard. And that was refreshing to see. That was cool. But other than that, very uneventful first game. But it was a little weird because we tied. I didn't think anything of it. Skip to week 2. Will look the exact same as week 1 and looks like every other preseason from titles before. Of course, the only difference in week 2 is that you don't have the training camp option, but you still have the weekly strategy and all of that. So took care of that. Rearranged my depth chart according to how certain players performed in week 1. Played through the game, uneventful as well. Left my head scratching at the end of it because we ended in another tie. Now, both games, week 1 and week 2, I started simming somewhere in the third quarter just so I can get through the testing. And I just thought it was weird that both games ended in a tie. But week 3, I played the entire thing, and of course that wasn't a tie. But of course it was uneventful, very uneventful. It was the exact same. And it's interesting because there really weren't any stark differences between Madden 25 and Madden 24 preseason experience. Overall, it's just something that needs a complete overhaul. And I felt like that in this rebuild. Jumping to week 4, the cuts, exact same as Madden 24. The stories weren't that interesting, but it was interesting to scroll through. But even with that, those stories could be powerful in the preseason. It just leave a lot on the table. But nonetheless, we jumped to week 1 and went throughout the season. And again, it wasn't anything eventful at all. Contract negotiations, those menus look practically the same. That experience is practically the same. There isn't really too much to talk about. It was pretty much the same from Madden 24, with the addition of getting those messages from your coaching staff and your trainers and your scouts. Other than that, there really wasn't too much different. I honestly am looking at a blank page right now. I don't remember any memorable trades happening or anything that was like, wow, that was really cool. It wasn't anything special, and I'm really interested to hear what other commentators have to say about the overall franchise experience, and I'm really interested to see what the rest of the community says. So make sure we're connected on Twitter at BeamMeUpBrian. That way when the game releases, you can let me know your thoughts, because I'm really interested. Because I just wasn't into it. It was the same. It was really the same. Now, I didn't play the Super Bowl because we didn't make it. So I didn't get a chance to see if the Super Bowl experience is different. I also cannot speak to the Pro Bowl experience. I was hoping that it would be a flag football type of thing, but some things kind of feel like a big ask. As of recording this video, I have not tested that yet, so I do not know if that's in there. If that is, shout out to EA. If not, just gave you another idea. At this point, I might start asking for a job, which I'll be cool with, by the way. Uneventful experience throughout the preseason, uneventful experience throughout the season. Came and went, Super Bowl's over with. Jumping into your re-signing stage. It looks the exact same for Madden 24. Didn't feel like there was anything different in terms of negotiations. There weren't new ways to have conversations with these players. The AI and all of that kind of seemed, honestly, it seemed a little bit worse. I'll explain why in a few seconds here. But overall, it was just like you just want more, especially knowing how complicated the NFL offseason can be, arguably the most complicated professional sports offseason. I mean, across the board, there are all sorts of demands, there are all sorts of holdouts, there are all sorts of public statements being made, and you just don't see any of that. And if you were expecting to see that, you won't see that. Again, if you get lost in it, then you will enjoy it. But if you're looking for something different than Madden 24, I didn't get that experience. Now, about that step back that I mentioned, when we got to the free agency stage, I noticed a lot of big name free agents in the pool. And I'm not talking about maybe 10 guys that are stars, but not superstars. I'm talking about superstar X Factor players and superstars in free agency. Guys that just make you scratch your head as to like, you're just thinking, why did the computer let these guys go? Now, it's a logic thing, so I'm inclined to believe multiple things. Number one, that it's something that could be tweaked later, which is always a little scary when it comes to Madden and the in-season updates. But number two, it may have been a glitch going in. It may not actually be like that, because then again, they've already told us that a lot of the ratings and things were off when it comes to these guys because they were just testing the game. They want you to just test the mechanics. So I'm going to err on the side of optimism and say that heavy pool of superstar and superstar X Factor free agents, that was just a glitch in the matrix. And I'll also throw this other thing that kind of frustrated me too. I'll also throw this in there. There were a lot of coaches that got fired, a lot of big name coaches that got fired. And while we know that the NFL coaching carousel is an ever-turning door, too much sticks out like a sore thumb. And it sticks out even worse because the people that replace these real coaches are these fake coaches that, you know, we can't edit, we can't change or anything. If you were expecting to be able to do that like I was, or hoping that you would be able to do that, you will not be able to do that. And it screams at you when you see all of these head coaches, whether you like them or don't like them, the real coaches always have a leg up with the fake coaches, because there's nothing with these fake coaches that the game does to make you care about these people. It's just like when it comes to storytelling or movies. If the writers don't do a good job of making you care about a particular character, well, you just don't care about that character. That's pretty much how these fake head coaches are in Madden. And the remedy to that is just to simply allow us to be able to edit these people. Just change the name. But if you can't do that, then definitely change the logic when it comes to all of these coaches getting fired. It's just a really hard reality to think that in the same year you'll see McVay, Harbaugh, Sean Payton, and there was one more that got fired. Oh, D'Amico Ryans. It's really hard to think that next year all four of those coaches will be let go. As I said with the free agency issue, I'll err on the side of optimism and say that that was just a glitch, a testing glitch. Hopefully that's not an issue, because even in Madden 24, we actually cut the coach firing off because we literally cannot stand those fake coaches. The game fired them anyway, and it was really annoying. So hopefully all of that will be taken care of. But anyways, moving on through the free agency, I did sign a couple of pieces. I just filled a couple of holes so that when we take the field for the next season, you know, it would be enjoyable. I didn't really have any issues with contract negotiations. I liked it in Madden 24, and there is no real difference between 24 and 25. So that means I didn't necessarily not like it in 25. Would I have loved to see something different and better some way, somehow? Definitely. I think we all would. But it wasn't bad. It was just like 24. So do with that what thy will. Now, of course, I already told you that I really appreciated the scouting aspect of it and keeping up with the prospects. The game did a better job this year of developing that excitement for those incoming prospects. And I can say that throughout the entire franchise experience, this is the most fun that I had. That phase, I think it's like the third phase, between the third and the fifth phase of free agency, and you're starting to ramp up your scouting as well. That little phase was the absolute highlight of everything. That's probably where you'll feel the most differences when it comes to Madden 25's franchise mode in general. Then, of course, you have the draft. And again, I don't have to cover it because we did a whole video on it. It's not a secret. That's what we enjoyed the most, and I think you will as well. But after the draft, after all of that, it's nothing, no fireworks, skin. That's it. You just jump to next season, and the loading screen pops up. The loading screen itself is new. It pops up, and then you're right back into training camp for the next year, and the cycle continues. If I sound uninterested, it's because I was. It wasn't as exciting as you would kind of want for a new game because it was basically last year's franchise mode. Listen, the best way to approach this is to not expect too much different. I love the NFL. I know that even if I don't jump right into a franchise in August, by the time we get to week 2 of the actual NFL season, I'm going to have an itch that needs to be scratched to create my own NFL universe. Will this game do that for you? Will this game allow you to get some sort of NFL experience? Yes. In fact, it will be a very similar, if not slightly better, experience than Madden 24. When I say slightly, I mean 5% or less. 5% or less. So I don't want you to expect anything crazy. But the fact of the matter is, when you get that NFL itch, Madden is the only thing that can scratch it. Unless you've got the time to basically take one of the other releases, whether it's an older game or whatever, and completely flip the whole thing. Other than that, out the box, the closest thing to the NFL experience is going to be Madden 25. And for my fellow franchise gamers, this is as close as you're going to get this year. And as I've said twice before, and I'm going to say it one more time, it will scratch your NFL itch. The problem is, it's definitely going to leave a rash again. It's definitely going to scar up again. And just to say it clearly, you're just going to want more. If you were expecting the big splash for the franchise mode, you're not going to get it. But I do think that you're still going to purchase the game. And I also do think that EA is going to continue to update this mode throughout this season. We didn't get a lot of franchise updates during Madden 24, but I think we will this year, mainly because this Madden dev team is under the microscope, and they're also reportedly thin right now because of how many of them have been working on the masterpiece that is EA College Football 25. So while I'm not necessarily bumping for EA, I do recognize that they might be stretched thin a little bit right now. And the optimistic side of me thinks that they'll continue to update it throughout the release season. But no matter what, out of the box in August, when it comes to Madden 25's franchise mode, you can anticipate something that's fairly close to Madden 24's franchise mode. Now, as we wrap up here, I will throw out this nugget. Everything in terms of editing seems about the same as well, but I did mention 2 episodes ago that the new UI definitely helps the editing process as a whole. Now, a couple of you laughed at me because I mentioned it, but it's important to some of us, the hometown and birthday thing. No, you can't edit either of those in the franchise. Madden 25 will be available worldwide on August 16th of this year. Early access begins August the 13th. And I'll be looking to see if you are enjoying yourselves. Hey, if you missed our last video where we broke down the draft and the scouting system, it's on the screen. Join us on our next episode as we say goodbye to Madden 24, as we recap everything that went wrong, and we'll highlight this one thing that Madden could do that could take the entire experience to a whole nother level. It's Brian's World, baby.